This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And we are back. By the way, I tugged my shirt. That's a drink, Mark.
That's one.
You got to take one shot. Is it... Now, are we going to do the drinking game of do they take a shot? Or, like, if they have a beer, do they just take a swip?
Depends on if...
The sip of the beer.
Depends on how your Christmas went and how much you feel like getting alcohol poisoning and going to the hospital.
Because I'm going to... Without even noticing, I'm just going to start pulling my shirt. That's another one right there. I just did it on purpose. Pulling it forward. That's the third one. So, our new drinking game of whatever... I touch my shirt because I do it without even noticing during these podcasts. But welcome in to the Onside Kick, where we talk about NFL and everything going around in it. And Mark, before I do the housekeeping, man, do we have a show today. We're talking about the NFL draft. Justin Herbert, the top quarterback, just said, nah, I'm here to play school. And I'm going to go back to said Oregon
really
Ducks.
Confused Jameis. He's like, wait a minute, what do you mean you're here to play school?
Cardell's even like, wait, what? We play school? I said we didn't play school, but we're going to talk about...
Was that Cardell Jones?
Yeah, it was Cardell.
Oh, I thought that was Jameis.
No, Jameis Winston was the crab legs.
Oh, he's got,
Yeah, he was the crab legs.
He also had all over the world.
Assault. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking
Jameis Winston had a lot more bigger problems
all over the world.
We're not here to play school. That was Cardell Jones, who I can't remember if he's on the Bills or the Chargers. I think he's on the Chargers.
Yeah, I think he left the Bills.
In their backup stable behind Phillip Rivers. But we're going to be talking about NFL draft. We're going to also take a look at the Seahawks, another playoff team that we're going to look to see if they can be dark horses in the NFC. And then we're going to take a look at Joe Flacco. Will he be traded? Who can trade for him? We're going to look at those teams of who could trade for Joe Flacco after this NFL season. Then we're going to close everything out, making our picks. But before we get into everything, make sure to help support us on patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That's where we cannot do what we do for you each and every week without the support of our patrons. You can also support us by getting yourself an MVP t-shirt. Not this one. This is a Bob Ross one, not the MVP one. But it's kind of the same. It's black.
And Bob Ross has an MVP tattoo. So
yeah, he does. He has it right across his chest. The big old
Unfortunately,
MVP.
he's wearing a shirt.
So you can't see it. So you can get yourself a t-shirt. That's down below in the description as well. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com. And make sure to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. It would be mucho appreciated. But Mark, let's get into it. We're going to start NFL draft. Justin Herbert announcing this past weekend in a statement on Twitter that I will read the whole thing. It says, the University of Oregon has been a special place for me for as long as I can remember. Words will never be able to express my feelings of gratitude towards the people that have built and maintain our program. What I have come to realize, though, is that nothing could pull me away from the opportunities that we have in front of us. As we prepare for our bowl game, I would like to ensure that there are no distractions outside of this game. My commitment to my teammates, our coaches, Duck fans, and the University of Oregon has never been stronger. I'll be returning to the University of Oregon for my senior year. Go Ducks. I want to ask you this. How does this affect the draft? Because that was my first thought of what does this mean? Because the top quarterback of this year, top quarterback in most of our minds. I know that Brandon had Dwayne Haskins at number 1 on our last big board. I had Justin Herbert as the number 1 quarterback on my big board. What do you think this does to the NFL draft? Justin Herbert going back to school next year will not be entering the NFL draft.
The first thing I need to say, I'm always a fan of players going back and finishing their education. I'm always a fan of that. Yeah, I'm always a fan of you finishing your education because that's something that you can attain, that's something you can have and you can take with you. The exception, and it's not really an exception. I want to put that out there because many times I've said that players should finish their school. And I'm a firm believer for those who want to talk about these players unionizing and stuff like that and getting health care and things like that. I think if that's something they should get or get paid, then you should be required to finish your education. You should finish it. I'm a big fan of getting your college education. With that being said, when you're the number one rated quarterback coming out of this draft, when you're probably going to go in the top 10 and make millions of dollars, you go. It's that simple to me. You go. I don't understand. I mean, and I don't know what his major is. Maybe he really, really loves that subject, and he figures he can't possibly go back like a Larry Fitzgerald or something like that. But he would easily be a
top 10 pick. He was top 7 last time we did our mock.
Exactly. Like, he's going to go. If the draft was right now, he's going to go at 8 or 9 to the Giants or Jacksonville Jaguars.
Unless the team trades up.
Yeah. One of those two teams.
Really digging into that Jaguars.
Right? As soon as I said it, I'm like, oh, that's right. They hate that. Yeah. Jaguars. Unless Jacksonville decides to trade, and skip the Giants, or Denver at 12 says, no, we want one of these guys. Because this is a perfect storm. There's nobody else out there who's really going to be taken. Maybe Dwayne Haskins, but that's debatable.
Well, that's another, and this topic I knew is just going to be, it's going to be a lot of, like, there's a lot of places we can go. It's kind of like Super Smash in your kind of character tree of like, ooh, I can go here, I can go there, I can upgrade this, upgrade that. This is this conversation. Dwayne Haskins is an interesting one to me because how does this affect the draft? Dwayne Haskins still hasn't made a decision.
Yeah, he should be more likely to go now, you would think.
Well, and that's what I would think, but I got to look at my text messages.
But maybe they just really want to crowd next year's quarterback class.
And that's a thing. Like, I know that Justin Herbert, as of right now, Tua will be next year unless Tua decides to stay.
Which he could, because he'll be what, redshirt junior next year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. Or no, he'll be a redshirt sophomore. Yeah. Redshirt sophomore.
I thought he was a redshirt sophomore this year.
No, you're right. No, he's a true sophomore this year. He was a freshman last year when they won the national title game.
That works.
So he'll be a junior. He'll be able to come out. Mortensen, I can't find the tweet that Brandon sent me, but it was Mortensen who said this. He goes, Dwayne Haskins from the College Advisory Board got a first-round evaluation or a first-round projection from them. And that Dwayne Haskins is going to talk to coaches at the OSU. He's also going to talk to his family. Still intends to play in the Rose Bowl game.
He's losing his coach. He's losing Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer will not be there. Well,
Rose Bowl is Urban Meyer's final game.
The coach that they brought in was his coach for the first 3 games, so it's not that big of a loss. But he loses Urban Meyer.
But Urban Meyer is a top-tier college coach.
To me, this is a thing of like, we could talk about the teams it affects. I think it's easy. Like the Giants and Jacksonville. More so right now, Jacksonville, because they're behind the Giants. Do we trade up to get Haskins? Do we sit back and just let the Giants have? It's going to depend on a lot of teams are going to scout him.
Now you're sitting there, too, saying, well, we liked Herbert. We like Haskins maybe, but just maybe not as much.
They're going to look into if they haven't looked at Haskins, they're going to. And then the other thing is, if you're Haskins, do you stay or do you go? Because now it becomes like the thing we put on Justin Herbert of, like you said, finishing school is great. Like, I'm with you. I'd rather have him finish school than not finish school.
But these are millions of dollars to pass up.
I do understand that, too. And that's why I've never hated when someone has been like, I'm going to leave school and go and take my money, because that is money that I will never see within my lifetime. But with Dwayne Haskins, now does he come out and would easily be a top 10 pick, or does he stay and crowd next year's draft class even more?
Exactly. And the thing, too, is, for Herbert, he's taking a gamble on this of does he think he is Matt Barkley, Jake Locker, or does he think he's Andrew Luck? Because obviously he thinks he's Andrew Luck, where he said, my senior year, I'm going to do even better, and I'm going to keep my draft stock. Now, Andrew Luck would have been a first overall pick if he came out his junior year or his senior year.
He was the chosen boy. Ever, like the golden boy ever since it was.
Barkley would have came out the same time as Andrew Luck. Wasn't that what it is? And then that's why it was the same year Andrew Luck came out of the draft. I think. So many quarterback classes, it's hard to keep them all in line at this point.
I got you. I'll check while you keep talking.
With Barkley, he was going to be the number 1 overall pick potentially. He was going to be right up there, and then goes to senior year and falls round after round after round.
Matt Barkley would have been 2012, stayed and went 2013.
Yeah.
So he would have been the RG3 Andrew Luck draft class.
Exactly. And that would have been tough. He's not going to beat Andrew Luck, but he could have been that third quarterback taken.
But the difference in that is, to me, like, if you're going to stay, because like Matt Barkley might have said, hey, I'm not competing with Andrew Luck for the number one. And I've got, maybe there were scouts telling him, advisory board saying like, hey, you could be number one good. Like, but Andrew Luck is going to go number one. He might have said, hey, I'm going to stay, so I'll be number one next year and get some more money.
And for Barkley, too, he got hurt. And that ruined everything. I
mean, so has you've got Herbert, as he's had a collarbone in the past. He's gotten a deep shoulder contusion this year that he was dealing with.
It's just a risky move, you know?
And that's why, to me, I said this before on the Primetime Podcast. I'm going to say this again on the Primetime Podcast in about 2 weeks when Brandon and I take more of a look of, is it the right decision for Herbert? And I look at it, and I did this as a blind resume for Brandon. I won't do it for you. But Jake Locker, his stats, his junior into senior year, junior year, he was a 2,800-yard passer, dropped to 2,267. He was averaging about 7.1 per attempt, dropped to 6.8. 21-11 TD to INT, 17-9. And his completion percentage went down 3%. And you look at Herbert right now, he's got more passing yards, about 100 more than Locker had his junior season. He's averaging more yards per attempt. And he's around that a little bit higher of a completion percentage where Locker, like the stats are so similar. In my mind, I kind of, and I said this to Brandon, I kind of almost think like I've read this book before and I know how it ends. I know how this book ends. You think I'm going to come back, improve my draft stock, and then you don't. Like you get drafted by the Titans and then you never pan out. Yeah.
And this is one of those times too where this really was the perfect year for whoever this number one quarterback is, because there are 3 teams.
Because I will make this clear, he is not going to be the number one quarterback. It is Tua Tagovailoa, and it is him at the top and him alone.
Although I will say,
I'll go out and say it.
I'm happy about it because I always say I don't trust Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm happy. Now I've got an alternative. But there are 3 quarterback needy teams in the top 15. You could maybe argue that Tampa Bay or Miami, which are also in the top 15, maybe you could make an argument that one of them is a quarterback needy team as well. But I'm not counting them. I'm saying the Giants, the Jaguars, and then the Denver Broncos. And I'm sorry to your Jaguar fans. You've gotten it in my head, and now every time I think about your name, I have to think of a different way to say it. But those are the 3 teams. And how many free agent quarterbacks do we really have? The Denver Broncos kind of swung and whiffed on one of them with Case Keenum. You're going to have Joe Flacco, we'll talk about later today. Nick Foles, maybe? But we've seen, we've read that book again. Like
Carson, you're talking about free agent.
I'm talking about free agent quarterback. Nick Foles will be a quarterback that you can get next year. But once again,
we've seen him with the wrong coach.
We've
and
read
Jeff
that
Fisher.
book. Yeah, we've read that book, and we know how it ended not well.
Here's another name I'm going to throw out there of how this could affect Kyler Murray. Like there are, and I know that you and I have voiced our opinion on this because of right now the consensus is that he's going to baseball. I would not waste a first-round pick on him. And I'm using the word waste because I know that there's a lot of NFL scouts that are like, he's a first-round grade. Here's the thing I wonder. I wonder if a team like the Giants, and I say the Giants particularly because Eli is not horrible. Like, I know Giants fans want to throw Eli under the bus, want to get rid of him as soon as possible. The Giants are the only quarterback-needy team I could see doing this year. Does a team like the Giants get ballsy enough to where they go, you know what, screw it. We're taking him. We're taking Kyler Murray right here. We're going to hold his draft rights for the year and see if he'll come play for us. Just in the chance that it doesn't pan out with baseball and he goes, I'm going to go play football.
I can't imagine anyone will do that in the first round. Unless you have like 4 first-round picks, you're not going to waste a first-round pick.
So the Raiders. The Raiders will take him
even
32nd overall with the Bears.
I said 4, not 3, so I don't know if the Raiders will do it either. I just don't think that you can take that big of a risk at this high up. But basically what's happening now is these teams towards the top, they don't have the ability to trade down. The teams that are, post the top 5 are sitting there going, great. Now none of these quarterbacks are going to be taken. So now everybody, those 10 guys that we had,
I'll say
now they're probably going to be gone.
The trade piece doesn't. The trade piece thing doesn't completely die yet. If Dwayne Haskins comes out after the because here's what I'm thinking with Dwayne Haskins. I'm thinking he's going to make his decision after the Rose Bowl, and
probably
what I'm leaning towards is I kind of agree with Brandon that he's going to stay also. But who knows? This decision by Herbert
inspire him.
Might say, hey, you know what? I got to retalk it. Hey, I got to go I got to go because I'm going to be the best quarterback in this draft class. The first one off the board where I won't be next year. So, this could change his thought process. But before this decision, I was kind of on board with Brandon, what will probably happen with Dwayne Haskins is he'll play the Rose Bowl. After the Rose Bowl, he'll make an announcement, hey, I'm staying at The Ohio State University. Let's go ahead and win the playoff next year. That is what I'm expecting. And even though I said the Herbert decision could change it, I still feel like he might stay because he's playing the bowl game. You don't play a bowl game if your mind's in the NFL draft. Look at all the other ones. All the other draft picks that have already decided. They ain't playing that meaningless game. Yep. They're not playing the meaningless game that could get them injured. And once he says, no, I'm coming back, then the trade stuff is all dead. But if he says he's coming out, then it just depends on which team gets that trade to work. And the thing that I'm bringing this in because Brandon asked me, Greeny from ESPN commented on the Herbert decision and said it hurt the Jets. And Brandon's like, I don't get this. How does it hurt the Jets? You brought up the trade thing. This is how it hurts the Jets. The Niners are in front of them. John Lynch has proven he knows how to make deals. He knows how to make deals with teams to make it sure they get who they want and we get what we want, which is future picks either in this year's draft or next year's draft.
Potentially, yeah. And it's just one of these times now where I don't think anyone can trade back at this point because people aren't going to be seeing that top prospect that they're like, yeah, I need to have that guy. Because people are saying that of the prospects here, Bosa's probably the only one that's like that I need to have Bosa. And Arizona's not going to pass on that.
No.
So there you go. It's done. What else you trading up for? And
no, I'm saying if Haskins comes out, they could.
Well, no, I'm comparing it to I think it was 2015 one where teams were calling, teams were saying, "Hey, someone, please, we want to trade back," and everybody was saying, "No, we're good where we're at."
Yeah, that was
nobody was interested in that.
Well, that was the Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota draft,
where no one's interested in trading back at all. Or trading up, I should say. I think this is going to be the exact same. Well, this is a deep draft for a lot of defensive talent. There's a lot of stuff out there. You don't have the quarterbacks. There's no reason for anyone to have any desire to trade up.
Well, and I look at it. I look at this perfectly. Arizona at number 1, they could hit all 3 of their needs with that first-round pick. You take Bosa, get a defensive player.
Yep.
Greedy Williams, get that cornerback you need, or take an offensive lineman. They could get any of those at number 1. It's probably going to be Nick Bosa, though. Then, San Francisco, I don't feel like if they're trading back, it's to try to a team that needs a quarterback trading up. The question with them is 8 or 9, because that's where we're recording this right now. The Jaguars and the Jaguars and the Giants are 8 and 9. Are they going to want to go that far back or just take what they want? The Jets could take what they like. There are all the teams in the top 7 could justifiably take either offensive tackle or defense and be happy with that pick and not have to trade back. The thing that I'm thinking about, and this is the caveat too, is if Haskins returns as well. Herbert is already returning. If Haskins returns, I'll ask you this. Will this be the first draft class that I can remember in my life where no quarterback goes in the first round.
Yeah, in recent drafts.
I can't remember in my lifetime where that has happened.
I'm sure it's happened once in our lifetimes because we're old enough to where we go back before the quarterback driven leagues a little bit, but still pretty much everything's been quarterback driven for the vast majority of our lives too. But we almost had it with the E.J. Manuel draft because Geno Smith, nobody was interested in him. But yeah, I think that if Haskins goes...
Well, the E.J. Manuel draft, we even had E.J. Manuel at 16.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, E.J. Manuel was the only one gone. We thought that maybe we could squeeze...
fell all the way out.
Yeah. If Haskins and Herbert aren't going, I think it's very real that you might not. But I do think that still, the way this league is built, someone's going to want to jump on a quarterback. Somebody gets desperate. But they might all just say, hey, now this is a really big bidding war for Joe Flacco. Now, everybody really, really wants to get Joe Flacco because you know you're not going to get something in the draft or a Tyrod or something like that. You're going to see some teams maybe get desperate. Or what's going to happen is now, since another year is going to go for next year, none of these guys really get their quarterback situation figured out. Maybe someone does with Joe Flacco. But then all of a sudden, now Tampa Bay really does need a quarterback because now it's one more year of Jameis, and are they ready to move on or not? Titans with Mariota, if they're high enough, they might want an upgrade. You got the Big Ben, if Kyle Rudolph is not Kyle Rudolph. I forgot their quarterback's name that they drafted last year.
Which team?
In the third round, the Steelers.
You're talking about Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph, there it is. Maybe they don't feel like they've seen enough out of him, and Big Ben does, in fact, retire. You know, there's just that one extra year. The Saints, if they win a Super Bowl, maybe Big Drew Brees, maybe he retires then in that case. But, you know, it's just one more year. So maybe next year is going to get really, really crowded with a lot of teams really desperate for quarterbacks.
Found it. Okay. So it has happened in our lifetime.
Figured it would.
I was 6, you were 5.
Nice.
Like, the closest we've gotten to it, 1997. You want to hear this draft class, first rounders? Orlando Pace to the Rams, Darrell Russell to the Raiders, Sean Spring to the Seahawks, Peter Boulware to the Ravens, Walter Jones was in that first round, Warwick Dunn, Tony Gonzalez. The first quarterback and the only first rounder, Jim Druckenmiller.
Oh.
Don't even remember who he is. He apparently played for the 49ers. The last time we hadn't had a quarterback, 1996.
Cool.
The top 3-4 picks in that draft class, the first one you may know, a little guy called Keyshawn Johnson.
Oh, nice.
The second guy, a little guy called Kevin Hardy out of Illinois. Another one you should know, defensive end Simeon Rice. And then a little offensive tackle, Jonathan Ogden. Who's another one? Marvin Harrison was in that first round. Terry Glenn, Willie
Anderson, good players.
Eddie George, that was Ray Lewis, was at the end of that one. The first quarterback taken in that draft class was Tony Banks to the St. Louis Rams.
Good old Tony Banks.
That was the first quarterback, and he was the only quarterback in the second round. The next one was the third round in Bobby Hoying out of Ohio State. So we could have this in 2018.
I doubt we will. Someone's going to be desperate enough to jump. And it's not like if you get Will Grier or Drew Lock or one of these guys, you're going to be that upset about it.
And here's the thing about it. Take Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Will Grier. Because I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be a clean no quarterback. What I think is going to happen is a team's going to fall in love with one of them. Either Jones, Lock, Grier, and do what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, do what the Vikings did with Teddy Bridgewater. Whoever is at 32, they're going to say, let's put together a package to move up and get that 5th-year option.
It's possible.
Let's move up. Let's take them in the first round so we get that 5th-year option, and then we have them. Kind of like what the Ravens, like I said, did with Lamar Jackson. Like, that is, to me, that is the only way a quarterback goes in the first round, barring Dwayne Haskins. If Dwayne Haskins comes out, this conversation at the end is moot because obviously we're going to have a first-round quarterback if Dwayne Haskins comes out.
Yeah. And I look at it and I just think that this year is going to probably be a hotter free agent market for not a lot of talent. Some teams are going to be upset, and some teams are just going to be in a holding pattern until next year.
Because you got the Redskins. Like, I mentioned this to Dave while we were out to dinner. You got the Redskins that need a quarterback.
Yep.
Alex Smith broke his leg, had an infection. Colt McCoy broke his leg. So it's like, I don't expect any of those two guys to be ready week 1.
I expect Alex Smith is done. He's gone. And Colt McCoy is not an answer.
Exactly. Like, they need a quarterback now. Like, and that's, to me, is like...
And they're sitting at 16 right now.
Where they weren't going to get one anyway.
Yeah, they weren't going to get somebody. So if for them, they might be sitting there going, hey, look at us. Someone might fall. Because, why not?
Or they might be a team of like, hey, let's trade back. Let's get Will Grier. Let's trade back second round. Let's get some picks and accumulate. But there are other needs that the Redskins could take at 16.
Definitely.
Any final thoughts with this? Anything you think we hadn't touched of how this Justin Herbert decision affects the NFL draft?
For the draft, not necessarily. I think we covered pretty much most of it. The only thing I will say extra is that we might get another one of those fun Jake Locker type of situation, Christian Ponder type of situations, where team drafts a quarterback. All right, 2 years later, team drafts a quarterback.
Oh, man. This year for quarterbacks is going to be interesting to see how this class pans out, especially when now all the eyes go to Dwayne Haskins. It's kind of like, hey, what are you going to do?
Yep.
Are you going to stay or are you going to go? But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. How do you feel the Justin Herbert decision affects the NFL draft? Let us know what you guys think down below. But let's move on, Mark, into the next thing we're talking about, and that's going to be some NFL playoffs. Kind of looking at we've done this before. The Bears, are they Super Bowl favorites? Bear fans said yes. Everyone else said no. Then we looked at the Texans, and Texan fans thought that they are for real, which they are. Not saying that they're not. And we're taking another look at a team where I'm going to expect the answer to this question for Seattle Seahawks fans will be yes, they are. But we're going to take a kind of non-Seattle fan take into this, and we've got the Seahawks. And the question I want to ask you is, they've pretty much got the 5th seed locked up. They could lose this game to the Cardinals week 17, doesn't matter. They own the tiebreaker over the Vikings. They're going to get the 5th overall seed. The question, though, I have for you is, with the Seahawks, will they, not could they, not are they, will they be the dark horses of the NFC in the playoffs?
I can see the Seattle Seahawks being a team that upsets somebody, but I don't see them being a team that makes a run. Like if they, right now they played, the Cowboys?
Yep, Cowboys, and then if they won that game, they would play, it would depend on, if the Bears win, then they'd play they'd play the Saints. If the Vikings or Eagles would beat the Bears, they'd play the Rams.
And to me, I see this team and I'm like, man, they got a lot of pieces. The defense has performed better. Russell Wilson's like, hey, I'm going to drag anybody who doesn't want to be here. I'm going to drag you to success. But I look at the team too and I say, well, who did they lose against? The Broncos. That's nothing too impressive.
Putting asterisks next to that Vikings game because of the refs.
The Bears, they lost to the Rams. They lost to the Chargers. They lost to the Rams again, and then 49ers. So taking the 49ers and the Broncos out of it, I look at it and I say, well, when they played good teams, they lost.
But they were close.
They were close, but they still lost. Then I say, well, let's look at, are there any teams they beat that I would consider a good team?
The Chiefs.
The Vikings and the Chiefs.
Well, and
maybe the Panthers.
The Viking game, though, I'm putting that off to the side because I know to a Seattle fan this is going to sound like sour grape, so let me have my sour grape moment.
All right. But remember, it was a 2-possession game.
The only reason they won that game, though, was because of the refs. First off, that blocked field goal should have never been a blocked field goal. Should have been a penalty on the Seahawks, put us into the red zone even more. New, fresh set of downs, could have scored a touchdown off of it, would have changed the game forever.
Then a one-possession game.
We could have taken the lead at that point. And then also the bullshit pass interference that they called before the game got out of hand. No one even touched him, just a hand out there while he's looking at the ball. 2 bullshit calls cost the Vikings that game. That's why I say put an asterisk next to that one, because I believe in my heart of hearts even though I'm a Vikings fan,
yes, you are.
That should have gone the other way, mainly because of that illegal call that was not called. It was an illegal play. They even said after the game, like Brandon even texted me and was like, "Oh, do you feel better that the ref said they got it wrong?" No, because they didn't change it.
All right.
Like,
then it makes you feel worse.
Like I told Dave, if you got it wrong, just say you got it right. Don't tell me you got it wrong, because that's going to make me feel worse unless you're actually going to retroactively change it and give me the W. So there, my sour grape rant is over, and why that one should have been a loss and not a win.
But either way, I'm going to stick to it to say that the Seahawks have beat like 3 good teams.
So you're saying they haven't beat enough good teams
to convince me that, yes, this is a team that is ready to make some real noise.
See, I'm on the other, like the only way I'm on the other side is I look at every single loss this year, except for maybe, every single loss. Denver, 3-point loss. The Chicago loss, a touchdown game. The Rams game, 2 points. The Charger game, 8 points. The Ram game again, you've got 5 points. And then the San Francisco game, you've got that was a field goal game that they lost in overtime. Every single game has been close enough to where I feel like this Seattle team is going to be that team that basically, hey, we're going to stick with you the entire way. Like they're not going to be that flashy team that blows out a team in the playoffs. But if they get the right matchup or the other team just doesn't blow the doors off, like the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes didn't have a bad game. Threw 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. Running backs had a good game as well.
But this is classic Andy Reid. Andy Reid slows down once it hits December.
Exactly. But you had Russell Wilson on the other side where that offense was just keeping up with the Chiefs and kind of controlled that game, where Russ had about 3 touchdowns. You had Chris Carson with an 100-yard game. Baldwin had 100 yards on the day. Well, Lockett was nearly 1 yard away from a 100-yard day as well. And with the Seahawks, I wonder. The way I see them as dark horses is they need the Bears to lose in the wild card round. Because if the Bears lose in the wild card round, whether it's to the Vikings, whether it's to the Eagles, whoever they might play in that game, I think the Seahawks can beat the Cowboys in the wild card round. And I think that they can beat the Rams in the divisional round. And then when you get to the NFC Championship game, anything is possible. Like, do I see them right now? If you said, Ricky, put your money on the Saints or the Seahawks to get to the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm putting my money on the Saints. Yeah. Like, home field, they're a team that Drew Brees looks like he's got that team laser focused right now on getting to the Super Bowl. I know that the Steelers almost beat them. Juju's fumble really costed that for them. But I don't see the Seahawks being a team to beat the Saints. But if, let's say, the Saints get upset in the divisional round, then I can see the Seahawks representing the NFC representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. Because any other team besides the Saints, I can see them beating the Cowboys. I can see them beating the Rams. Let's say they do.
They've lost to the Rams twice this year.
But they're close enough games to where I feel like the third time. Plus, it was so early in the year, that was a different Rams team. Todd Gurley was healthier. Todd Gurley's barely being used anymore. Jared Goff was a different Jared Goff. Like, that was, here, let me look at the schedule really quick.
One's like, I think, week 4, and the other one's maybe 8.
Yeah, but I got to look at the Rams schedule really quick, because that was, if I'm not mistaken, the first time they met was right after Jared Goff had that, ridiculous 5-touchdown game against the Vikings. And then the second one was right before they had that really big shootout against the Chiefs. Ever since then, the Rams have been kind of, a 2-2 team. Didn't look good against the Eagles, didn't look good against the Bears. The Seahawks, I think, if they played the Rams a third time, could get the better end of the Rams that we have seen within the last few weeks.
I just look at it this way, and I look at the teams they face. The Saints are still my number 1 team. They've lost to the Rams twice. I know you already made your points, but they still have lost to the Rams twice. They have already lost to the Chicago Bears, a Chicago Bears team that was only in week 2, so they've gotten better. as the Seahawks have gotten better as well.
And the Seahawks, let's be honest, should have won that game, I think. Like, from what I remember with how that game was going.
The Bears basically dominated the whole time, and the Seahawks started to come back, but couldn't. And that's coming from a Bears fan, so Seahawks fans can get mad at me for saying that the Bears dominated the game. But they'll beat the Cowboys, and they've already beat the Vikings. So they can get out of the wild card round because they're going to play the Cowboys. I just don't really think they're going to go much further than that.
What I was looking at, and I looked it up right now, is so with about 10-13 to go in the game, the Seahawks were up 17-10. And it's like, okay, you're up by 7. I'm thinking at that point, as long as you don't turn over the ball, the Bears could be 0-2 to start this year. Boom, Prince Amukamara, 49-yard touchdown. That changes the game completely.
Defense is dominant.
Yeah, and then one interception changed the game and gave the thing to the Bears, but it was a game where it's like, hey, if the Seahawks do their job, could win. Yes, the Bears defense made a play, and it wasn't like,
that's the way it goes.
It wasn't like a Minnesota Viking game. I'll say that. The Bears actually won that game. But, I mean, this Seahawk team, like, I could see them, like I said earlier, they're not going to be a team that dominates a team in the playoffs. They're not going to win, like, 38-17. They're going to be a team that goes, we're going to stick around. We're going to make this a slugfest. We're going to make you use every bit of energy that you have to beat us. And I feel like this game that we just saw with the Chiefs, I don't know, like, because you could say either two sides. You can say that we saw a lot from the Seahawks of what we're going to see from them moving forward, or you can say what you said when I brought it up the first time of like, well, we know this is Andy Reid. Andy Reid usually slows down when we get to December. So with that one, I don't know. Could be a little bit of column A, column B, but it could also be...
It's definitely a column A, column B situation.
Hey, the Seahawks are looking really good right now and carrying some momentum into the playoffs.
The Seahawks are looking good. I mean, there's a reason why
a lot better than both. You and I didn't have them in the playoffs, I don't think, in our predictions. I know I
don't remember. I don't remember how I had the Seahawks turn out.
Look it up.
But, you know, the thing with the Seahawks that is most impressive is they don't turn the ball over, but they'll make you do it.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing. The unfortunate part is, are you going to face teams that are going to turn the ball over? You know, I mean, that's a way where they could get a shot at the Chicago Bears because Mitch is still young and he still makes some dumb mistakes. Goff is still young. Goff has made dumb mistakes. Kirk Cousins doesn't make a ton of dumb mistakes. You know, with Dak Prescott,
can make some mistakes.
He'll make some mistakes. So you've got some guys in there. You know, if you're going to Kirk Cousins and Drew Brees, the two more veteran quarterbacks looking at the playoff picture right now, less likely to do it. That's still the reason why I'm saying they can make splashes early. It's just when they get to a point, I think they'll hit a wall.
Let's see. I'm looking right here. Is this you or me? You had the Seahawks at 3rd in the division in the preseason. You had Rams at 10-6.
For a second, you said 3rd, and I'm like, hey, look at me. I got them in the playoffs.
Rams at 10-6, Niners at 9-7, asterisk. That was with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Correct.
Seahawks at 9-7. So if they lose this week, you're spot on, 9-7 for the Seahawks.
It's just that the 49ers needed to not do 49ers things.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Garoppolo got injured. I mean, that's the whole thing. Whereas I had them, I had the Rams at 11-5. The Niners I was high on. I had them at 10-6, just missing the playoffs because I had flipped that late and had the Saints get in over them last second before we recorded. And then I had the Seahawks at 7-9, which obviously they're going to
Good thing you had the Saints getting in the playoffs.
Better than 7-9. Yeah, I believe I had the Saints.
I remember you wanting to not have the Saints in the playoffs.
Yeah, originally I had them at 10-6, not making the playoffs. But to be honest, both you and I, we had the Falcons doing a lot better this year.
Definitely.
And the Falcons have kind of pooped the bed a little bit this year, and they'll probably be a top 10 pick.
And then from that, I do remember, too, this. I don't think this was the revised one where I revised the Bears into post-Khalil Mack trade.
Yeah. Well, you did that on a podcast beforehand. I let you do. We didn't officially do when
we did a whole segment on it.
Did we?
Yep. We did a segment on it where I said the Bears are now in the playoffs and it knocked out the Packers.
Yeah, I thought that was at the beginning of a Bears segment that we did. I thought that was at the beginning of the Khalil Mack trade segment we did.
It probably was, but I'm still counting it.
Because, I know with the Tony Romo and Teddy Bridgewater injuries last year,
we did a whole revised. Yeah, this wasn't a full revise. Yeah. This was me and the Bears are in, the Packers are out.
And then we talked about the Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Because then we went right into that game, and we talked about
it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was before that game, because I know we did a segment about them after that game. For me, with the Seahawks, I think they could be a team that don't be surprised if they steal a game or two, especially that wild card game.
That's not a steal. They should be favorited for the wild card game.
But even if it's on the road, is what I'm saying. Usually the home team, you give a little bit of favoritism too. But the Cowboys, to me, are not a strong team. Seahawks can come in and get that win. And I'm telling you, if either the Eagles or the Vikings get the better end of the Bears in the wild card game, I could see Seattle going into the Rams. I don't care if they've already lost twice to them. I could see them going into L.A. and beating this Rams team because of what I've seen from the Rams down the stretch. The problem I have with the Seahawks is they're playing hot, but they're not the hottest team that I've seen. They were 4-5 and have gone, what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-1 since that point, since their last game to the Rams. They've gone 5-1, could be 6-1 after a win. But I think the only thing in my mind that lessens that is because, to me, the hottest team, the hottest run right now going into the playoffs is the Indianapolis Colts. A team that I wanted to talk about again this week, but I didn't want to have that conversation and then have them lose to the Titans and then be out of the playoffs.
For sure.
But, that's the only reason why I feel like with the Seahawks, I'm not, I'm high, but I'm not super high, because I see a team in the AFC that's on a way hotter run than the Seahawks, although their run right now is hotter than the Rams, who are playing in the same division as them.
Yeah. And, I mean, you look at these teams, too, and they only play who they play, so I can't knock the Seahawks on beating teams that are easy to beat. It's a very
central, or UCF, sorry, they don't like when you call them Central Florida, UCFism of you can't judge us for who we play, man. We only play who we play.
Exactly. But the thing that stands out to me, though, is I look at those Rams losses. I look at losing to the Bears. I look at losing to the Chargers and say, well, those are the caliber of teams you're going to play.
And they've already beat Dallas, but that one was in Seattle.
I think we both agree that Dallas is
the weakest.
Barely a playoff team.
No, barely a playoff team. I would take the Eagles over them.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah,
really, the whole NFC East.
I mean, the Eagles
they are not the NFC Beast this year. They are the NFC Least this year.
Yeah, I remember you getting to call them the NFC Least all the time. That was fun.
And now then they were the Beast. Now they're back to the Least.
Yeah, I just look at it and I'm like, there's going to be some really good teams, and sure they can upset somebody, but I don't necessarily know if it lasts that long. I just don't think they have the total team. And you can say but they beat the Rams when they were a better team. Sure, but there are. I would say right now, if we were doing a power ranking, just the NFC.
Just the NFC.
It would go Saints, Bears, then Rams. Because the Rams are getting depleted by injury. And the Bears have some issues with injury, too.
If we're only doing top three, I would say Saints, Bears, Seahawks.
That's fair.
I would say the Seahawks have a better chance at getting out of the NFC than the Rams do at this point.
Yeah. I'd say that's fair.
And there's a little bit of me that might flip the Bears and Seahawks, but that Bear defense. If I'm a Seahawk fan, though, here's what I'm rooting for, and this will be the last thing I say. Here's what I'm rooting for if I'm a Seattle fan. The Vikings need to win twice. They need to win in Minnesota. They need to win in Chicago, because then as Seattle, I get the Cowboys, I get the Rams. And then, hey, if Minnesota wins again, cool. We get Minnesota and Seattle. We get a home game. But if not, I will then take my chances.
That's your dream scenario.
Yeah. I will then take my chances against the Saints in the NFC title game rather than in the divisional game.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to play the Saints because the Saints are saying, we should have been here last year.
And not just that. And the reason why I say NFC championship game rather than divisional game, because I know someone's going to be out there and say, what does it matter? The Saints are the Saints. I rather have Drew Brees. And the reason why I want the Vikings to win too is think of it this way. Vikings come into town that divisional round. It's not just the fact that I don't want to play Drew Brees off of a bye. Because if I get him in the divisional round, I've got a rested Saints team where we had to beat up on Dallas. Whereas in the NFC Championship game, they've played a game and haven't had a full week off to rest at that point. Also, if they play Minnesota, which they would have to because Minnesota would come in as the 6th seed, if that game is even close against the Saints and the Vikings, you're telling me that a couple of those Saints players might not be a little bit emotionally drained? Now, I'm not saying like completely depleted, but a lot of emotion is going to go into that game because of what happened last year. And how many times have we seen in the past team plays other team that they lost to last year, really puts a lot into it and beats that team?
It means a little extra more.
They treat it like a Super Bowl.
It means a little more.
They treat it like a Super Bowl and then lose the next game. Like, how many times have we seen that where it's like, yes, we got over it. We beat them. Oh, shoot, there's 2 other games, and then they lose. We've seen that before. Not saying that would be the Saints, but I would like to see that rather than, all right, we just beat Dallas, and now we got to play a well-rested Saints team that is just laser focused on us coming into this week.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that would not be your ideal situation. That's for sure.
Like you said, the ideal one is that the Vikings just win 3 games.
Yeah.
They beat the Bears this week, beat the Bears next week, beat the Saints in New Orleans, and then Seattle would get a home game against the Minnesota Vikings in a rematch of that one. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below about the Seattle Seahawks, or if you're not a fan of them, the Sea Chickens, as I've always called them in the past. Sometimes depends on the segment that we're doing. But let us know, are they a dark horse? Will they be a dark horse in the NFC? Let us know in that comment section. And Mark, before we go and make our picks, the last thing that we are going to talk about is a little bit of trade rumors here. Yep. And this one's been kind of boiling and kind of lingering on some lukewarm. Like, it's basically, how do I want to, what did Dave bring up on the fast break? It was some cooking thing where the whole tagline of it was set it and forget it from when we were a child. But that's basically what it's been. Oh, here's the trade rumors. Just set it, forget it. It's been sitting there kind of on a low simmer to see if it happens. Joe Flacco, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson has come in, has played well, is going to lead them to the playoffs with a win this week over the Browns if they can do that. The whole Lamar Baker showdown that I know our patron Dallas wants to see, because he messaged us and said that, I just want to say that when he was on the onside kick, he said that Lamar should have been drafted above Baker. And he's like, just saying. And I was like, cool, you're right. You're right. You've got it. Like,
well, I wouldn't say he's right. Yeah, he's got his chance to see.
Lamar, like, this is the game. This is the one that'll be the measuring stick. But so far,
even though they've got entire careers and stuff like that too.
Exactly. But for right now, this is the measuring stick for this season. And I've liked Lamar, what he's been since the Ravens team looks completely different since he's come out. But the Ravens got a choice to make. What do they do with Joe Flacco? And I feel like we're leaning closer and closer to an eventual Joe Flacco trade in the offseason. What I want to talk about is what teams or which teams could trade for Joe Flacco. So I'm going to kick it off to you first. Obviously, I'm not going to set it to myself here, so I'm going to throw it over to you, Mark.
Yep.
Give me the first team you want to talk about. Which teams should trade for Joe Flacco?
The first one I'm going to go for, I personally think, is the most obvious. And the reason I say it's the most obvious is because Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, basically very similar types of quarterbacks. So I'm going to go over
different team that I thought you were going to say.
But hold on, I don't want people to get confused. I'm not talking about the New York Football Giants. I'm talking about the Jaguars.
That's the team I thought you were going to bring
up. And the reason why I bring up the Eli Manning thing is because of
Tom Coughlin,
who might, rumor has it, be taking over a little bit more of these coaching duties next year, which shouldn't surprise anybody in the entire world because it makes perfect sense.
I like Doug Marrone the last few years, but Doug Marrone hasn't been a Super Bowl winning coach.
No, and you know what the thing was, when Doug Marrone is your coach and you got somebody coming in here to be your football operations guy, well, that's what the coach does. Yeah. That's the coach's job. So what does the coach do in that case, besides just game day stuff? Tom Coughlin looks like he's going to creep in here and take it over. And I think that Joe Flacco kind of makes sense for a Tom Coughlin type of quarterback.
By the way, just kind of to interject this, because I completely forgot to say this at the beginning of the podcast. Mm-hmm. I just want to say I was right about Steve Wilkes, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to say I was right about that, because I told you, we talked about coaches, and I said Steve Wilkes should be fired at the end of the year and get shutted. He's going to get shutted. That's the report. At the end of the season, he's going to be fired. So
let's still wait and see a little bit before you declare your victory.
Pro Football Talk says it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get fired. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I forgot to do it at the beginning of the podcast. The Jaguars, though, were the team I thought when you started talking and you said Eli, I was like, oh, okay, he's taking a different turn here. I thought he was going to say the Jaguars, the team that he likes pronouncing their name wrong. But I mean, for me, that's the obvious choice. Like, Blake Bortles is not working. Cody Kessler is not the answer. As of right now, in the draft kind of picks, if you and the Giants end up with the same record, you're both going to be the same record. The Giants are going to be ahead of you because of their strength of schedule. So if a Dwayne Haskins comes out, congratulations, the Giants are going to have them unless you trade up.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, assuming they want them. And I mean, you look at the last games for both teams, Jacksonville's playing a Houston team where Houston still has to win to clinch that division. They have not clinched the division yet, if I am not mistaken. Let me see. Maybe they did update it, and I'm speaking out of my rear end here. No, they clinched a playoff berth, but they have yet to clinch the division. The only team to clinch a division little spot in the AFC is the Patriots. They're the only ones. Not even the Chiefs, the number one seed, has clinched their division yet. So, I mean, you're playing that tough team, whereas the Giants are playing a Dallas team that has the division locked up. There's no way they're going to move up to the third overall seed.
Yep.
They could be a prime team, not saying that they will, but a prime team of like, all right, we're just going to rest the starters. This game means nothing to us. Like, we are locked in at the fourth seed. Let's go ahead and just rest everyone that we need to heading into that last one. The Giants could actually get a win, and the Jaguars could actually lose that game, which could help them in the draft pick kind of spin up because they would then end above the Giants. But I feel like for Tom Coughlin, what do you want with this Jaguar team? Do you want a young rookie quarterback in a weak draft class, or do you want to go out and get a guy who's a veteran quarterback that knows how to play in the league and you don't have to teach a ton of stuff to transitioning from college to the NFL?
Yeah, and there's that too, and there's also the question of just, is it going to be someone that even fits what you want to do? I don't imagine that the Jaguars really want a quarterback that's going to be one of these mobile type of quarterbacks. They have what's set up to be a little bit more with this power run type of offense where you just let Leonard Fournette do his thing and you come in here and do your thing. Blake Bortles' best year when he had 60% completion, 3,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, that's a Joe Flacco year. That's literally any year of Joe Flacco's career with two exceptions where he was doing about 4,000. He's going to have anywhere from 12 to 15 interceptions. He's going to hover around 20 touchdowns. He's going to give you probably about 3,600 yards. That's just Joe Flacco with even more completion percentage because he averages a little higher than Blake Bortles does. You have Blake Bortles' best year is an average Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco, I think, will be better because when was Joe Flacco best? That Ray Lewis team. Great running game, great defense. All he had to do was not mess up. And that's what the Jaguars want to be.
And let's be completely honest. Joe Flacco, although he hasn't been, like, we've been trashing on him lately.
He's never been bad.
He's never been bad. And think about the wide receivers that the Ravens have had. Yeah, they've had, like, Torrey Smith and some high-profile receivers. But lately, they kind of have receivers that are similar to the Jaguars. Where the Jaguars this year, people are saying, oh, the wide receivers are the problem. You said coming into the season, I don't trust these wide receivers. Like, they just don't, like, they lost too much. They lost Allen Robinson. They lost Hearns. Oh, wait, your best guy in Marquise Lee, you lose him to an injury before the season even
And they've
starts.
had a lot of injury issues. You know, there's been plenty of bad. And I do want to make one quick correction.
Joe Flacco has the over 60 completion percentage with wide receivers that could be similar to what the Jaguars have now.
I'll make one correction for anyone who's a Joe Flacco hater, because I know they're out there. 2013, I would argue, was a bad year for him. He had one bad year in 2013. But
that was the one where, 19 to 22 interception. What was their record that year? Does it say 8-8? So,
I'd argue that's a bad year, sure.
I mean, he also had an 8-8 year in 2016, but his stats
were fine.
He was not the problem with that season. Let me see. I'm going to look up that schedule. So, in that year, this was their schedule, and remember which year it was with 2013.
Yep.
They lose to the Broncos. They beat the Browns, beat the Texans, lose to the Bills, beat the Dolphins, then lost to the Packers and Steelers, which were playoff teams. They lost to the Browns that year, which was shocking because the Browns were bad.
But it's a divisional game.
They win against Cincy. They lost to the Bears, so they're 4-6. And after going 4-6, they ended well. Like, they had a win against the Jets, win against the Steelers, win against the Vikings, win against the Lions, just ended against the Patriots and Bengals and lost those final two to go 8-8.
Yeah.
Like, they had a little bit of a run later in that year, kind of like what the Colts are doing right now, but not exactly. But yeah, that would probably be his worst
I think we would argue that of any of the quarterbacks you can reasonably get, Joe Flacco is probably the best one, right? Like, we're agreeing on that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So with Herbert now staying in college, he's arguably going to be the best quarterback you can get. Because your other options are what? Tyrod Taylor? Or Case Keenum, maybe?
Or the Philly Special.
Oh, Nick Foles. I'm not even thinking about Nick Foles.
Yeah,
but
the Philly Special could be, like, this is his last year on the contract. I don't think that they're going to re-sign him.
Someone will pay him, but I just imagine that Nick Foles is one of those. We've already seen it. It didn't work. But anyways,
Tom Coughlin can work with him.
And you know what? That's probably the best case scenario for Nick Foles.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, when Nick Foles was going to quit football, I'd quit football too if my coach was Jeff Fisher.
Sure.
Like, wouldn't you be depressed and wanting to quit football if your coach was Jeff Fisher?
Yeah, but I mean, Sam Bradford did pretty well with Jeff Fisher.
Yeah,
not amazing, but he did pretty well.
That was a different Jeff Fisher. Like, Jeff Fisher...
They weren't that far removed from each other.
Like, Jeff Fisher, like, that last year... Even we were all saying, like, come on, dude, what are you doing?
We had been saying that for years.
Why are you
7 and 9 bullshit.
But, I mean, like, here are the possible free agents, barring options and stuff. Tyrod Taylor.
Yep.
Josh McCown. Teddy Bridgewater. I'm getting this from Spot Rack. Matt Schaub. Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I would say the top in no particular order. You could trade for Joe Flacco, get yourself Tyrod or Ryan Fitzpatrick, or go out there and get yourself a Josh McCown. It's not that sexy. Or a Nick Foles if he does hit the free agent market.
Yeah.
If I had to order them, I would say Joe Flacco's my number 1. Ryan Fitzpatrick's my number 2. Tyrod's my number 3. Nick Foles is 4. And then Josh McCown is 5. That's what I would say is my top 5.
If I'm one of these two teams, this is what I really want. This is my dream scenario here.
You're saying one of the two teams between the Giants and the Jaguars?
Yeah, yeah. Is that I want to go ahead and get Joe Flacco because he'll be 34 years old by the start of the season next year. Yeah. He's on the 16th. He'll turn 34. I want him. He's going to be a veteran. He's going to be a nice presence. He can be a stopgap.
His birthday's January 16th?
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was January 10th.
Nope, 16th.
Oh. You can trust Joe Flacco then. You want to know why? It's Capricorn.
Because he's got a good birthday.
You know us Capricorns.
So
I mean, he's a day off from the best birthday, but we can't blame him for that.
That's all right. So he's a good guy who can be there, be your mentor. And then you know what you do in this? Maybe you do take the shot in the first round. You say, fine, we'll take a Will Grier. We'll take somebody who's not going to get the guy you want. No, he's not going to play. You're going to Patrick Mahomes him. You're going to let him sit there, and you're going to just ride out with Joe Flacco next year because it'll be better than nothing. It'll be better than starting a rookie without any type of sure thing and any type of NFL experience. Let him develop. Now, Joe Flacco will be pissed because he just saw this show with Lamar Jackson, and it didn't end well for him. But you know what? He's going to be 34 years old. I think that's just the journeyman part of his career has begun.
I got a different team that I'm going to throw out. And the thing we didn't mention also is with Joe Flacco's contract, yeah, there's a potential out before 2020, but virtually he's got 3 years left. Mm-hmm. He's got 3 years on his contract for whoever's trading for him. I'm going to throw out this team, which I think would be it's similar to the Jaguars, better situation. The Washington Redskins.
I can't imagine how that's a better situation than the Jaguars.
Because yes, the defense isn't as phenomenal as
the run game is not as good either.
The run game, I would say, could be like you've got more options there. They've got a similar run game to what he's used to with the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. They've got there right now Adrian Peterson as their guy. They've got Thompson, who's the return guy. Their biggest problem has always been just injuries. Also, similar to the Jaguars, their wide receiver core is nothing to write home about. You don't have to worry about that with Joe Flacco. He'll get anybody to kind of work well because they'll throw him the ball. The thing that I like better about the Redskins compared to the Jaguars, though, is I feel like in the AFC South, the Texans are really good with Deshaun Watson. The Colts are starting to come up with Frank Reich. I don't know with the Jaguars if this was just a bad year or if this will be the, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have been bad this year because now the Texans and Colts are going to kind of stop over us and stop us down.
I think this was a little bit of a problem that was under the surface with last year.
Because the Titans are also very good, too.
This offense, very good. They're good. They're not very
contending for the playoffs. Good, like
barely.
The division in the AFC South, I feel, will be a tougher division than the NFC East because the Eagles, if they get
defending Super Bowl champion Eagles,
but if they get rid of Nick Foles and Carson Wentz goes down again, question marks at who's going to take over there.
Injuries are always an issue for any team.
The Giants, we don't like their. Yeah, they've got Saquon Barkley, but who's going to be their next quarterback? And then the Cowboys would be your biggest challenge, but even we've seen with the Cowboys that they've got cracks in their armor. So I wonder with the Redskins is if they have the right quarterback, and I think we almost saw it with Alex Smith a little bit because they did look like a good team with Alex Smith. It was once he went down, they kind of hit shit the bed and just started falling down the river without nothing to go with. If they've got a guy like Joe Flacco, they might be able to contend easier in the NFC East than the Jaguars with Joe Flacco would be able to compete in the AFC South.
Yeah, and it's an easy move for him. I mean, he's not having to go very far.
From Baltimore to the capital.
Yeah, he basically, he probably won't have to actually do any moving depending on how close he is in Maryland. But anyways, with that, sure, but do you really want to be another quarterback when you've seen how this organization is treated RG3 and then Kirk Cousins? You really want to jump into that puzzle now?
He doesn't have a choice, does he?
Well, he's not going to have a choice, but it's going to depend. How much flexibility are the Ravens going to get? Yeah. And I thought, I could be wrong, but I thought that the discussion was the Ravens are going to collect offers and let Joe pick what. I thought that's what it was, but I could be wrong.
I'll look it up.
That they were going to give him the option of where he actually ends up once they get those offers. Now, how much of that is true? I don't know. If a team offers...
So, according to CBS, the headline reads, Ravens will send QB to team of choice.
Yeah.
Here are 5 teams that might work. So I don't know if that means...
That means they're going to get the offers and they're going to say, here you go.
Okay.
And that's what they're saying. Like I said, does that mean that a team that offers a third and and 2 other teams offer a second, are they going to keep that team of that offering a third and say, no, that's not a real offer. Here's your 2 options, Joe. You go ahead and pick.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I just don't know if I would trust being a part of that organization. I don't know if I want to be any part of it. And that's another type of situation, too, where for the Washington Redskins, I didn't think that getting Alex Smith made that much more sense either, because it was another one of those, they just have to get another quarterback, and he's going to get Mahomes. Where Joe Flacco, in this case, he knows he's going to get Lamar. In any of these scenarios, he's going to run into a Lamar Jackson situation. The benefit he has is with Herbert now saying no thank you, that's going to probably add another year to where he can actually stick around.
Let me throw out this team then. Here's my number 2, because the Jaguars are there, but you already said them.
Yep.
Here's the number 2 team I was thinking. What about Miami? Is that because they're a team in my mind where it's like, hey, do you trust Ryan Tannehill? Like, is he the guy to get you over the hump and beat Tom Brady? Or are you just sitting back and going, yeah, we'll just wait till he retires. We'll wait till good old TB12 until he's gone, and then we'll make our move to rue the day in the AFC East. Or could the Dolphins say, hey, you know what, Ryan? We've seen enough. Yeah, I know that Flacco's about 4 years older than you. As Tannehill is 30 right now, and he'll be 31 at the start of next season, so 3 years older.
When Ryan Tannehill is healthy, he's a great quarterback.
It's just he
just has health issues. Yeah, I mean, he's just having health issues. And there's more to that than just Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they need to give something around him to support him. I don't see Miami making a move. Not this year. They've recently signed Ryan Tannehill to a better deal.
But if they did, would that be a team that Joe Flacco would be like, yeah, I'd want to go there?
I mean, I guess, sure. But it's not going to be an option for him. The Florida team that is an option and isn't Jacksonville is Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Because they might be very done with Jameis Winston, and they've benched Jameis Winston.
Ryan's going to be off the books.
Yeah. They've benched Jameis Winston multiple times this year.
They don't know what the hell they want. They bench him, then they don't bench him, then they bench him, then they don't bench him. Like,
so that's
dysfunctional. That's what I've labeled them.
Yeah, and I think that their dysfunction is one that makes sense in the sense that they are just saying, we don't like either one of our quarterback options. And they're sick of Jameis Winston. He's never really improved that much. Ryan Fitzpatrick will always let you down. So they're done with either one.
Here's a tricky situation. Out of the teams that we mentioned, this is the last thing we'll do.
Okay.
What do you think in your mind is a fair trade package for Joe Flacco? Like, if you're coming up with a trade in your head, if you're the Ravens, what has to be there?
What was I don't remember what the Alex Smith trade was.
Let's look it up. Alex Smith trade. That's the power of the internet.
And to me, that's basically the answer. What did the Washington Redskins give up for Alex Smith?
So they reached an agreement where, let's see, the Redskins, they traded Smith to Washington for Kendall Fuller and a third-round pick in the 2018 draft. So Kendall Fuller and a third-round pick for Alex Smith.
So maybe, in this case, you just say, how about a second? Is that good? Just straight up. Give us Joe Flacco. We'll give you a second. We're done.
Let's see. I want to see if they all have their second. So Tampa's right now would be 37th overall. 39th as of right now would be the Giants. 40th would be Jacksonville. And then 47th would be Washington. And 48 would be Miami. So they all have their second round picks.
A team that I think we can't ignore, and we don't have to talk about them too much, but is the chance for the Denver Broncos to try and do something.
Yes.
Because Joe Flacco and Eli...
Especially if they fire Vance Joseph.
Yeah, and John Elway make a lot of sense. The problem is just there's a Case Keenum sitting there right now in the spot. And Case Keenum was not on a one-year deal. I think that was a 3-year deal, if I remember right. And I don't know exactly how it went, so I don't know if there's an easy way to get out of it. But there is a problem if Case Keenum is sitting there right now.
It is a 2-year deal.
2 years.
So next year's his contract.
Okay. So maybe you're willing to just take the loss and say, all right, see you, Case.
But from what
it says, maybe someone else will take Case Keenum.
But from what it says here, I believe it's kind of like a Mike Glennon situation. Because in between them, Spot Rec has potential out before next year. I think that, according to what I'm seeing here, the Broncos might be able to get out of it before next year.
And if they can, I think that's a great option too.
Just dump them and move on?
Yep. Of course, then you're running into the same situation of that's a tough division to play in, but...
Because, I mean, here's the thing I'll mention with the Redskins before I give my 2 cents on the Broncos. The thing is with their trade package, we already gave up Kendall Fuller to get Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Do we want to give up yet another person?
Very true.
To try to get Joe Flacco, or are we just going to try to sign like a Ryan Fitzpatrick? Whereas Denver, the thing I find interesting about them is, let's see what the Ravens really need. I'm going to look up their needs right now for the draft and see if, give me the good old Raiders. So according to NFL.com, wide receiver, edge rusher, and inside linebacker are the three needs for the Ravens. What they could easily do is, I mean,
if you have to sit and think about it, I don't think it's that easy.
Well, no, it's probably like, because the question is like a Shane Ray. Would the Broncos say, hey, we've got Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, we can trade Shane Ray in like a third, or Shane Ray in a fourth, depending on how high you value Shane Ray, and go ahead and get a Joe Flacco? Or do they go ahead and say, all right, we'll give you like Andre Holmes in our second? Like, just give you a wide receiver that you can use, like kind of use. Because do they still have, they don't have Emmanuel Sanders on their roster still, do they? Or was he just hurt?
I think he was just hurt.
If he's on the roster, Emmanuel Sanders in a second or third, a second might be too much, like for the Broncos to give up. Like Emmanuel Sanders in a third, I could see that going for Joe Flacco easily. Possibly. And the Ravens taking it because they need some wide receiver help. It's just going to depend on what the package is. And it'll probably be similar to that Alex Smith trade that you mentioned. Oh, give us a player that we can use, but you really don't need, and give us like a second or third or maybe a fourth round pick, depending on what player you're giving us from your team, and we'll easily give you Joe Flacco if Joe Flacco wants to go there. Would Joe Flacco want to play in Denver?
I don't see why not. It's a good team.
With a new coach?
It's a good team. I don't see why you wouldn't want to go there.
Well, I mean, he could easily say no to any of these. He can say no to any of them and say, I want to stay here in Baltimore.
You can come up with a good reason why he should say no to any of these teams, but I think it's a good option.
You can come up with a reason why he could say yes or no
exactly
to any of these. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. First off, where would you want Joe Flacco to be traded, and what are some teams that you think will trade for Joe Flacco or try to trade for him this offseason? Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section.